need to
Hey
wear the
there,
same
fight
shirt
fans.
every-
Welcome to the post-fight show brought to you by SB Nation MMA for UFC on ESPN Plus 9. SB Nation MMA includes BloodyElbow.com and MMAmania.com, the only two websites you're ever going to need to go to find your mixed martial arts news. What we just watched, my name's Flying Brian J. I'm your host as usual. My co-host, as always, are the guys from the 6th round, Mr. Positivity, Eddie Mercado, and Major Zane Simon. But what we just watched was a fight card that was bookended by Elias Theodorou losing an Elias Theodorou style of fight. That tells you almost everything you need to know about this entire fight card, but the last of which was Donald the Cowboy Cerrone kind of styling on Raging Al Iaquinta. Zane, what do you think about that main event and this card overall?
I loved the main event. It was an amazing fight from Cerrone. Honestly, a fight that I wasn't sure he still had in him. Just a consistent pocket striking, prolonged exchanges performance against a hard-punching, capable, tough boxer in Iaquinta, somebody who could really go out there and put hands on him and cracked Cerrone hard several times. But, you know, the first two rounds were really close. I thought Iaquinta scraped him out. They were really, really close, tough rounds to score. But Cerrone took over the whole second half of that fight. From round 3 on, it was just totally one-sided. And, you know, if it weren't for the fact that Cerrone actually has some brilliant performances in his career over guys like Eddie Alvarez and that win what's the one I was trying to think? Yeah, that completely complete shit kicking of Miles Jury he had. I would say this is one of the most composed, prolonged performances of Cerrone's career, but he's done this before. It's just really cool and impressive to see him do it this late on.
Still 30 plus fights in the UFC. That's insane, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he must have discovered the fountain of youth or something. And so I got to ask. So he's 3-0 as a dad.
Mm-hmm.
Flying Brian, you just became a dad. Are you going through the same sort of wins in your life? Like, are you just winning everywhere?
Well, I feel a whole different sense of motivation, that's for absolute sure. And I thought about it as soon as my son was born. I thought of Donald Cerrone, actually. I thought, I need to succeed in life. Like, I need a better job. I need to make more money. This kid, I need to provide for him. I got to stop drinking as much and everything. So I can totally see the parallels in my life and Donald Cerrone kind of getting his shit together and being a better fighter.
Man, that sounds like exactly the reason I need to not have a kid.
Well, I mean, it's making my life better too.
I know. All respect, honestly. I'm just like, I need to stop drinking. I need to get a different job. I'm like, gosh, no.
Like buzzkill after buzzkill.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't stopped drinking, but like during the day until he goes to sleep, I try to hold off just in case something happens. I got to take him to the hospital or anything like that. But yeah,
this was a great performance from Cerrone. Complete outclassing. And seeing him maintain that focus and not get clipped, even though he ate some really hard shots, he was able to eat them without issue.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. This was a classic picking apart. You know, he stuck with his jab, he stuck with his leg kicks, and then from there, he built on his head kicks. His head kicks weren't there, so he went to the up kick. That was there. Turns out a fucking jab dropped Iaquinta.
Yeah.
Iaquinta had never been fucking dropped in the UFC. Boom, a jab from Cerrone did it. That was pretty cool to see. And it was cool. Like, I love Cerrone, and this was great, but it doesn't take away from how much I hated this fucking card. This card sucked, dude. I'm sorry. There were like 4 fights on here that I liked, and that's not cool.
Well, we usually do, what would you give the post-fight rating for the entire card? And Eddie, a lot of the times you will just go with how many
Mr.
finishes.
Positivity, Eddie, take it away, Mr. Positivity.
Yeah, so it's a 3 for you.
I would go 3 or 4. Like, Cerrone gets 1, the Cub Swanson Burgos gets a point, and then Walt Harris gets a point for his shit kicking. He did. So 3, maybe 4.
I'd give 1 to Macy Chiasson, but we can get to that.
Yeah. Like, that was a great performance, but not worth adding a point to this card.
No, absolutely not. What was really fun for me during the main event was of course, Michael Bisping and Brendan Fitzgerald were talking about. It was Iaquinta's boxing versus Cerrone's kicks. And for a long time, they were even on kicks, but it was still Donald Cerrone who was doing the better work with his hands as well. That was
Well, timeout. No. They were even on kick count.
Yeah, kick
They
count.
weren't even on kicks. Like, the significance of Cowboys' kicks were far superior to what Iaquinta was throwing. So, like, even if the numbers were somewhere even or close, that doesn't tell the story.
Which brings me to Shane Burgos versus Cub Swanson. I just want to dive into that for a second. The significant strikes in that fight were like even, but it was Burgos who was landing with a lot of more power. Zane, what did you think about that 30-27 on the side of Cub Swanson?
I mean, I don't know. I think too much gets made of that. Judges, they have different angles. The significant strikes were close. Swanson landed a lot of good shots. Like, all the way through, people are like, oh, man, this is a really cool, close back-and-forth fight. And I think Burgos is edging it out every round. And I thought, I scored it for Burgos, too. I scored every round for Shane Burgos. The biggest problem would be that I think Swanson pretty clearly lost the last round. Like, Burgos started just walking him down and just taking him apart late in that fight. And Swanson had a couple of big moments where he came back, but that really felt like the point where it really shifted. So Swanson getting that round sucks. The first two, I was pretty sure Burgos won them, but I don't like to make a lot of weird judging in very back and forth open striking fights. Judges tend to be pretty bad at scoring those kinds of fights often.
And when, like, the strike count is so close and there's no drops, there's no real significant damage, like, you can't really be like, oh, well, his punches were that much harder. It's like, maybe they were, but, like, not so much to where, like, someone can easily see the fight going the other way. So, like, this was just super close, and I'm just so glad it happened because this was a high-level kickboxing bout pretty much until Cubs started going for those takedowns. And I loved it. High level, like, this is great. This is, like, top shelf MMA right here.
It really was a couple of really good fights just mixed in with a whole bunch of stuff nobody needed to watch.
Yeah. It makes this gig tough when you have to cover slogs and they're all, like, compiled together.
Well,
Well, what really sucks is I came into
either
this.
that or, digging ditches somewhere.
This
I know.
is true.
I suppose.
This is true.
This is like a part-time thing for most of us, though. So, and what really sucked is I was super pumped for this card because I missed last week because I was out doing some stuff. So I was like 2 weeks out from having some UFC in my life, which would be great if they would do that every once in a while on their own. But then we come in and we get just merp after merp, slog after slog. Eddie, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about Donald Cerrone saying he either wants to get closer to a title shot or fight Conor McGregor in July?
Yeah, like, duh. That's like, what else is there for him? He's never had a belt. Like, I would love for Cerrone to get a belt, and I would love for him to fight Conor McGregor and get a red panty night. It's both of those are things I would love to see. Matter of fact, he can fight Cowboy can fight Conor for an interim title. There you go. How about that?
That'd be such a UFC move. But I mean, it just sucks that in the current lightweight division, neither of those are that probable right now. Like, at least not immediately. Like, Conor McGregor, we don't know what the fuck he's doing. We can, he can talk about, oh, I'll be back, I'm gonna fight, I'm never leaving this fight game or whatever, and dude might be in jail in 6 months. We don't know. And with the title shot, like, that title picture is like 5 contenders deep right now.
There's already 2 champs.
Yeah.
Well, there's kind of 3 because throw Tony Ferguson into it too. You got Dustin Poirier, Khabib, and Tony Ferguson. All those guys have got a belt and then never actually lost it without Dana White just taking it away from them.
Conor's the people's champion, so there's kind of a beltish thing there.
Yeah, so what I thought was the most realistic thing that would be fucking awesome, and it's a shame that it wouldn't be a money fight, a big payday for Donald Cerrone, is Justin fucking Gaethje. Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm Cerrone, I'd probably take that fight because Cerrone has always been a dude who will just take it whatever fight the UFC throws in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about that fight, though, is it would do huge in Denver. Holy shit, that would do so well in Denver because they're both like have claim on that territory.
Yeah, it would be a great fight to put on in Colorado. It'd be a surefire headliner.
It could headline a card even worse than tonight's, and I'd still be fucking pumped about it.
Yeah, it's an awesome fight for fans. It's just also one of those things that if you're looking for a title shot, if you want a title shot and you want to like secure a legacy, man, going through Justin Gaethje to do it just feels like such a a terrible way to have to go.
Let's put like a WWE or WCW hardcore title on it. Let's make up this totally different belt.
It's an all violence. It's an all violence title fight.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
The Gaethje. This is how you win the Gaethje.
Right? Yeah. Fuck yeah, that'd be the best. Oh man. Oh, I think I gotta calm myself down, put a pillow on my lap because that fight's getting me so fucking excited.
Calm down, Brian.
Yeah, no,
This is a family show. What's gotten into you?
My bad.
I'm supposed to be making those inappropriate comments.
Blumpkin.
See, Eddie? See how it feels? Be on the other end of this?
You never want to be on the other end of a Blumpkin.
No, God, no.
Oh my God. Zane, you got a WTF for the card?
I mean, it was just that Theodorou Brunson fight. That was such a god-awful, hilarious shit show. I mean, it was exactly the fight I knew it would be, but it's still wild to see that live. You know, it's like saying,
because it started like it wasn't going to be that.
Yeah.
And then like just quickly went into it. And it's like, yeah, I knew.
You know, watching Brunson try to like be the controlled kickboxer in the cage, and just none of the footwork is there, none of the strike selection is there to actually chase Theodorou down at all. But Theodorou just getting so tired so quickly that he looked even weirder and wilder and less composed than normal. That thing was hilarious. And still, Theodorou still won the third round for 2 judges. And for me,
these cats are ranked.
Yeah.
Like these are tough. Like,
I was talking about it leading into this, but middleweight is a division full of dudes that the weirdest fighters can beat on the right day to go on a run all the way to the top of the division. Like, you just look at, like, you know, you look at guys like Brunson and Theodorou, and you look at these runs of success that they've had, and it's just like, all of these are exactly the right fight for your super weird limited style to work perfectly, and then just get crushed by somebody in the top 5.
Darren Till.
Yeah, it's weirder to see it work at welterweight. I mean, that's a whole different thing. But middleweight is like if everybody was Darren Till. You know?
The land of Till.
But like even less technique used.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying Darren Till technically. I'm just saying like the amount of technique you need to do what Darren Till did at welterweight is way more impressive than the amount of technique you need to do what Theodorou and Brunson did at middleweight. But it's still that same kind of like streak until you just run into the hardest wall of your life.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw out my shining star. And it's also kind of a WTF because Walt Harris, he enacted his insta-kill mode and just like, it's like he started the fight with his special meter already full. Like he entered the cheat code and like he just came out and it was just like, oh, a 1-2 missed? Okay, well here's a 3-4-5, a 6-7 8, and like just unloaded this crazy 50-second flurry that was absolutely the best display of violence we got all night. And oh man, thank you, Walt Harris. Like you were the shining star of this card. Like what Cowboy did was cool, but what Harris did, that's violence.
Connor joked in our pre-fight show that Sergey Spivak looks exactly like the kind of dude who's very much like, you know, when you were studying boxing, I was studying the blade. This fight looked exactly like I was studying the blade performance.
My shining star and also WTF of the card goes to the guy who was in the stands dressed as the Ultimate Warrior. Like he was the star of the show and also WTF, but where the fuck did you get that badass costume, Mr. Warrior? Also, where do you get the cojones to wear that thing to the arena? A lot of the times when you go to arenas like that, it's hot as fuck inside, and that guy was wearing like a 3-inch thick Halloween costume.
Getting uber gross and sweaty probably just makes it that much better on Ultimate Warrior costume.
But it's also Canada, so like how warm is it really there, honestly?
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know.
Okay. I don't know, but I bet someone was polite to him if he bumped into them. Anyway, let's get out of here for this portion, Zane. Just do the thing.
All right. We'll move it on. Thanks, everyone. You can find me on Twitter at TheseAnytime. You can find Eddie on Twitter at TheEddieMercado. You can find both of us over at BloodyElbow.com. We're going to jump over and do the 6th round right now. That's over on Bloody Elbow Presents. That's on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever. We're out there, so check us out. Find us. Thanks, Brian, for having us on, and we will see you next week after UFC 237.
Thanks, Zane. Take it easy, buddy.
Yep.
Eddie, the super special extra little thing. What did you think of the commentating booth tonight? They did some goofy things on ESPN where, like, one, Michael Bisping as, like, the color commentator, and two, bringing in that Heidi chick between fights for no apparent reason.
Yeah, so, man, the funniest thing with the commentators. So my buddy Shane Graham, who is the commentator for Spartacus Fight League here in the 757, and he was watching this event with his wife, and his wife, she was like, "Is that Shrek commentating?" And I'm just like, oh, shit. She thought Michael Bisping was Shrek commentating. And then I listened to Michael Bisping talk, and I'm like, damn, that does kind of sound like a stretched out Shrek kind of voice commentating. Like, you know, Mike Myers, Shrek.
Yeah.
I lost it, dude. I was like, man, that is, like, hilarious. That's spot on.
He
But
showed.
yeah,
Go ahead.
commentating sucks, bro. Commentating sucks.
What did you think of them bringing in the Heidi chick for fucking no apparent reason after every fight? Like, we've never
I think
seen her
it's-
before. I don't know who the hell she is, and she's like coming in to tell us what's happening in the locker room. But like, instead of cutting to the locker room for her to show us, she like showed up at the booth and was like, "Hey guys, my name's Heidi. They're in the locker room."
Yeah, I thought it was the Bellator chick for the longest time. I thought she was like the one. I don't know, man. I don't know what they're doing. I guess they're just trying things, trying to figure out their commentating thing, because they're just kind of freeballing it. I think. I don't know. They're because they're bringing in Trevor Whitman, which I love. I love Trevor Whitman.
love
so
that
when
part,
they bring
yeah.
him in to give his take on the fights, that's awesome. But Heidi, I'm not sure what her credentials are. I don't know how she got the gig. Why she's employed and Jimmy Smith isn't is beyond me.
Yeah, and I understand that why Laura Sanko wasn't there, because she commentated Invicta last night. So that's that. Normally, like, she would be in that sort of role, or Megan O'Leary.
Right.
I don't get why. So if we're having Michael Bisping do his best at the color commentating, Daniel Cormier is way fucking better, first of all. So is Paul Felder. But if we're having those guys do that, let's bring, like, Misha Tate to do friggin' Heidi's job.
Yes. Misha Tate. Bring a Marlis Kunin. Bring, anybody else.
Someone with some
All right,
credentials.
well, Brian, I got to roll. I want to shout out to my sister. She's pregnant with twin boys. Finally bringing some testosterone to the family. So good news here. But I got to run. They're beeping me in for the 6th round. They're going to be upset.
All right, see you
But
later,
I'll
buddy.
catch you next week, man.
See ya. While he's getting out of here, I have to just mention really fast that Eddie said that his sister's bringing some testosterone to the family. Like, what do you got, Eddie? I'm just kidding. All right, June's here being our moderator. Also, Harvey Weinstein wants to know if we read the comment section. Yes, we do. If this is your first time being here on the post-fight show, my name is Flying Brian J. What we just did was like the intro portion. We usually aim for 10 minutes. We went 18 or so. I tried to keep them a little bit longer. I apologize to them for doing that, just because I don't have a lot to talk about on the rest of this fight card by myself. But what I usually do is I talk about the rest of the fight card by myself that I didn't talk about with Mr. Positivity Eddie Mercado and Major Zane Simon. June's here with the official post-fight bonuses. So that's my question for you guys right now. Let's start with that. What would you give for post-fight bonuses? And remember, because this is a show where we're not actually giving anybody any money at all, we're going to give out 5 performance bonuses, or 1 fight of the night and 3 performance bonuses. So we're giving out 250,000 imaginary dollars instead of 200,000 like Dana White gives out. We already have the real ones, which I usually stall for that. Thank you, June. I would give fight of the night for the main event. I would give co-fight of the night for Shane Burgos versus Cub Swanson, and I would give an extra $50,000 to Macy Chiasson for her TKO victory over Sarah Moras in the last fight on the preliminary card of ESPN Plus in the 2nd round with 2:22 into the round. Dan Mears says fight of the night, Cerrone versus Al. And Priem Alemyan. I know you're here a lot, man. I'm sorry that I always... Prem Alemyan. Alemyan. I really apologize. I'm not good at pronouncing your name, but I thank you for being here. And I also thank you for missing me last week. That's really means a lot to me. So, those are my performance bonuses. And the real ones, as June has told us, fight of the night went to Iaquinta versus Donald Cerrone, the main event, where Donald Cerrone won via decision. There were times where he could have finished, it felt like. You know, he dropped Iaquinta a couple of times, once with that jab that Eddie talked about, once with the front kick to the face, a la Anderson Silva versus Vitor Belfort. That's the first thought that I had when he did it. It was pretty fucking dope. Performances of the night went to Walt Harris and Macy Chiasson. Dan Mears says, what do you think about Brennan Fitzgerald as a commentator? I think that he's really good at his job. I think that he's just the one notch below John Anik, and that's because he's got less experience in the game. I enjoy listening to Brennan Fitzgerald. I'm just not sold on Michael Bisping being his partner. Like Paul Felder and Brennan Fitzgerald, I think gel really well because I think they've hung out a few times in their life. You know, they've got more chemistry than Michael Bisping and Fitzgerald. And I just like Paul Felder's style of commentary a little better. But Brennan Fitzgerald, I think that he's good. I think that he's better than that guy that we all hated on last year, who kind of replaced Mike Goldberg and then just disappeared. It might have been 2 years ago now. Can't remember his name, but yeah, I like Brennan Fitzgerald. What do you think, Dan? Ian Gifford says, Cowboy with performance and fight of the night. I like it. Possibly a performance bonus to Macy Chiasson and Walt Harris. Todd Grisham. Thank you, World War I Tim. Yeah, Todd Grisham. I did not like Todd Grisham. We can talk about him for a second. Back when he was the guy that replaced Mike Goldberg, he said that he was a hardcore fan and watching for a really long time, and then like he didn't know who Maurice Smith was or something like that. I'm like, seems fishy, Mr. Commentator. I know that he was trying to bring like a casual kind of nature to the broadcast team, is what Todd Grisham was trying to do, and it just came across as a casual fan being a commentator. So I like a lot more, or I like a lot more. That sentence doesn't make a lot of sense, but Daniel Cormier, Paul Felder, and those guys in the booth in that spot are way better. Yeah, and the real Dr. J says he was a WWE guy, and that's one reason why we hated on him too. But anyway, my real what the fuck of the card. Let me ask you guys what your what the fuck, or just WTF, you can be where, why, when of the card, or whatever you want to do. WTF of the card, what would you give it, guys? As I'm waiting for your comments on that, Priyam Alemian says, do you think Cowboy still matches up well against Khabib? His current status and age, is his experience going to play any part in that fight? I don't like the stylistic matchup for Donald Cerrone against Khabib. Khabib's pressure. Donald Cerrone is allergic to pressure. Iaquinta didn't give him a lot of pressure. In fact, at the very beginning of the fight, Iaquinta went to the center of the octagon and just stood stationary and wanted Cerrone to come at him. And I thought that was not the idea of what you should do against Cerrone. You need to get in his face, push him back, come at him with solid boxing in the forward momentum, get Donald Cerrone on the back foot. His kicks are less effective, and he's got worse defense in that situation. And Iaquinta didn't really implement the game plan to the fullest extent, or to like his potential. And Khabib, I think, just fucking runs at him, puts the pressure on, maybe even gets him down. I would like to see the idea of Cerrone maybe throwing up submissions off of his back against Khabib when Khabib has him in that Dagestani wrist lock type of thing. Yeah, you would have to favor Nurmagomedov, like minus 250 at least, right? You would think. Yeah. Dan Mears says, completely agree with you. I couldn't put it better, but I do think if they found somebody Bisping got on well with, could be very interesting. What about the idea of Michael Bisping with John Gooden? I'm putting them together because they have similar accents, but that would be an interesting little grouping. As for the WTF of the card, World War I Tim says the what the fuck goes to Arjan Singh Buller because Juan Adams won that fight. Priyam Alimian says what the fuck to Elias Theodorou's choice of strikes. Jackson Round says the co-main event was entertaining. It was decently entertaining, but there was no threat of a finish, it didn't seem. The slam that Derek Brunson hit on the Elias was probably the highlight of, well, definitely of that fight. It was in the top 5 of, like, best moments on the entire card. Priyam says John Anik is currently the best guy for the job. I love, if we're talking about commentators a lot, I love Daniel Cormier and John Anik. Those two together, I think, are fucking great. And as Joe Rogan, Daniel Cormier, and John Anik is a dream booth for me. I know some people don't like the 3-man booth, but you need Daniel Cormier and Joe Rogan will go off on tangents and they'll just go in their own conversations, not even really talk about the fight that's in front of them. And John Anik keeps them reeled in. And John Anik is kind of like the rock of the group, keeping things steady, keeping things on track. And Cormier brings that zest for life, the jovial kind of attitude that he's got. Also a very high-level knowledge in the technique of wrestling, grappling in general, and striking from the clinch and everything like that. Daniel Cormier is a genius in terms of his fight IQ and everything. And then Joe Rogan, of course, the staple, the GOAT maybe, at least the OG. And he brings a lot of emotion to the table. And I think those three really play well together. David Buskila says Cruz kills it for him. I'm not a huge fan of Cruz either. He's a curmudgeon. He's negative. He doesn't like to joke around in the booth. And I think that, especially because I myself am kind of a curmudgeon, a negative Nancy at times, I need somebody like Daniel Cormier to lighten the mood and not someone like Dominic Cruz to make things even more serious and put a damper on the fun. So even though Dominic Cruz is a really high-level competitor and knows a lot about the sport, can pick things out really well, I mean, Dominic Cruz often calls things that are going to happen before they do, and that's fucking awesome. But just his general demeanor is just like negative, and I want to have fun while I'm watching fights, and his attitude makes it not a whole lot of fun. The real Dr. J says they were supposed to fight 2 times before, and Khabib got injured twice. He could lose some crazy submission taking Cerrone down. That's absolutely true. Rose Through says that they missed the fight card. Was the main event the best fight? It was the best fight for sure. And Dana White and the crew agree because they gave it the fight of the night bonus. Joe M. Cerrone didn't have prolonged exchanges in the pocket. He used long range tools to win. Jab, outside low kicks, inside low kicks, front kicks. He poured it on in the end. Combination punching. Great fucking breakdown, Joe. Thanks, man. Priyam says, I don't like Cruz at all. Total depression mode. World War I Tim. Katona is so weird. Like, his best weapon is his jab and the front low kick, and he moved to Ireland for SBG. TriStar would have sharpened him up with a GSP style. Jackson Round says, Dominic Cruz, underhooks. Yeah, he says that a lot. Joe M. Exactly why he picked Cowboy. He's better everywhere except for chin, but that held up when he doesn't have a quick turnaround versus Tim and Masvidal. Yeah. And how many times do you think Iaquinta attacked the body of Cerrone? Not very many times. Mayheem says, give Cerrone a title shot. We talked about this in the early portion of this post-fight show. There is so much coagulation and bottlenecking at the top of the lightweight division that we can't put Cowboy up there getting a title shot at this point, because we got 3 guys that have a claim to a belt: Khabib, Ferguson, and Poirier. Poirier and Khabib are probably going to fight soon, and then what the hell is Tony Ferguson doing out there? And whenever Conor McGregor wants, he can be like, hey, I'm coming back, I'm getting a title shot, bitches. So I really think that I want Donald Cerrone to fight Justin Gaethje. World War I Tim, thanks for bringing me back on track, John Anik style. Did I ever do my WTF of the card? No, I did not. I did like a Shining Star, which was the guy wearing the Ultimate Warrior costume is also like, what the fuck are you doing wearing a Ultimate Warrior costume to this fighting event? But my real what the fuck of the card, I agree with you, Tim. Arjan Singh Buller, his unanimous decision over Juan Adams was bullshit. I think Juan Adams clearly won 2 rounds. Clear as day won 2 rounds. What was it, the first 2 where Arjan just fucking like leaned on Juan Adams up against the fence? The only damage being done in the entire fight. There were a few times when the jab of Arjan was working against Juan Adams, but the damage being done in that fight, at least for 2 rounds, was Juan Adams against Arjan. And it was Juan Adams backing Arjan up, but then for some reason Juan kept like going into the clinch once he would back Arjan up to the fence. And then Arjan would just reverse him up against the fence and put him up against sorry, I'm distracted by June responding to Mayhem. Thanks, Mayhem. But yeah, so Arjan would just reverse it and push Juan Adams up against the fence. And both guys got really fucking tired in the first round. But just like, what the fuck to the judges, especially for the 30-27 for Arjan Buller. The UFC's website sucks so much, I'm not just going to waste some time to look up the stats for the Buller versus Juan Adams fight. But I think if we looked at it, the significant strikes landed in the first 2 rounds were on Juan Adams' favor. And even if the numbers weren't there in favor of Juan Adams, his were more significant. They seem to be doing more damage. And so, yeah, my what the fuck of the card. And also, I know Eddie and Zane disagreed, but also what the fuck to the judge who gave it 30-27 to Cub Swanson. I thought Cub Swanson clearly lost all 3 rounds. So to give all 3 to him I think that was bullshit. What the fuck to the judges. Just, I mean, almost every time we do a post-fight show, you could say what the fuck to the commission. There's like some kind of fuck up. Like yesterday, didn't Macy Chiasson get like 3 attempts to make weight? Normally, you get the first one, and then you get an hour to try again, and then that next try is it. But this time, she missed the first time, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but she missed the second time as well, but she could try as many times as she wanted until that hour was up. So, just what the fuck to mixed martial arts in general for not having a consistent guidelines or rules for anything commission-wise. Jeremiah White says, great main, but most of the cards sucked. Kinda. Yeah. The real Dr. J said it should have been Burgos and Swanson in the co-main. Yeah, Mayhem, she made it in the last hour somehow, but I think she got 2 extra tries, right? Ooh. Priam says, am I going to give a quick shout out to Raymond Daniels' crazy spitting shit in Bellator? That was insane. First of all, and I don't know what position this fight was in Bellator, but it happened earlier today. Raymond Daniels did a spinning back kick to the body. It knocked his opponent down. He just kind of stood there and postured while his opponent got back up. He did a hurricane kick. So like he spun once, and on the second spin, it was going to come with the right high kick, but he dropped it short and then just like followed through with a wide right hook that knocked his opponent out. Holy shit. That's got to be one of the best knockouts ever, right? And it happened. Some of the times we see these really badass knockouts, they happen in smaller promotions. Bellator's a pretty big deal. Raymond Daniels with the hurricane to faking you out with the right high kick as the ending part of the hurricane kick to come in with the wide right hook knocking his opponent out after a spinning back kick to the body dropped him. Insane. That was fucking delicious. And almost the only thing that I saw on Bellator tonight. The real Dr. J and Dan Muir talking about in the post-fight interview, Michael Bisping asked Walt Harris after knocking out Sergey Spivak in just 50 seconds what he wants next. And he said, you know what, I'll take on anybody. But Walt Harris has been talking some shit, so maybe we get that going. I think it's a fine fight to make. They're in similar spots in the rankings. The real Dr. J says the big ticket versus the big titty. Of course, you probably know that Curtis Razor Blades, after beating Justin Willis, called him Big Titty because his name is the Big Pretty. Pretty dope. World War I Tim. Oh, yeah, where's Rob Amon? Rob's usually here. Hey, June, you want to get rid of John Smith for us? Thanks, June. Would I cut anybody on the card? Yes. Yes, I would. God, I don't know. If Arjan would have lost that fight like he should have, I would have cut him. For sure. Arjan's very disappointing run in the UFC. Maybe not for sure. He beat Marcelo Golm, whatever. His Omoplata loss to Adam Vishorik was embarrassing. And I thought his performance tonight was not worthy of getting a victory. So he's on the edge. Like, keep an eye on Arjan Buller to get cut. Cub Swanson either needs to retire, or we're sending him to Bellator or the World Series of Fighting. He's now lost 4 in a row. I know he made a good account of himself against Shane Burgos here, but you lose 4 in a row, you got to do something else, man. Maybe the UFC keeps him around. I don't know what his contract looks like right now in the WME IMG era of the UFC. They're not cutting people before their contract is up. They'll just let them run out their contract and then not re-sign them. I think it might be because of the class action lawsuit against them for the monopoly or whatever. The guys at Bloody Elbow, John Nash and them cover that really well. But I think that might be why they're letting guys run their contracts out. But, I mean, damn, Cub. 4-fight losing streak. If he doesn't have one left, you have to send him to World Series of Fighting, the Professional Fighters League, or whatever. Jeremiah says that he looked slow tonight. Mayheem says, what happened to Cub? Well, even in his last win against Artem Lobov, he didn't look that good. I mean, he had some tight rounds that he might have lost a round against fucking Artem Lobov, who has a losing record in mixed martial arts. I don't know exactly what happened to him. I think he lost his killer instinct. RC Kim says being old in the lower weight classes, specifically featherweight's not a good thing. Priam says that he saw Arjan that had a great wrestling pedigree. It's just not translating well into MMA. It's really, really not. The real Dr. J says his fighting style is too brawlish for the current milieu in the division. And that's one thing. He's become kind of fragile. You know, he got hurt quite a few times against Brian Ortega, which, of course, Brian Ortega has hurt many of foes in his time. But getting dropped by the jab from Renato Moicano, you could see that the strikes from Shane Burgos were hurting him a lot tonight. You know. Good one, Dan. Dan said that Artem Lobov has a winning record in bare-knuckle boxing. Mayheem says just like Cody Garbrandt, he gets a little reckless. And he actually doesn't have enough power. So he'll agree to get in those phone booth fighting situations like against Shane Burgos or like he did against the Korean Superboy Doo Ho Choi. But he doesn't actually have enough power to make his opponent not want to get in those exchanges with him. You think of Cub Swanson as a knockout artist because 11 of his 25 wins are via knockout, but the last time Cub Swanson finished a fight with strikes was Dennis Seaver, UFC 162, in July of 2013. A long fucking time ago. 6 years ago. In mixed martial arts, 6 years is a long frickin' time. Have I asked you guys what post-fight rating you would give the entire card? I once tweeted I would give it a 2 out of 10. I'll give it a 3 out of 10 just because the main event was really fucking cool. I was Team Donald Cerrone going in. I bet on him. Also, I just like watching his fights. He's got a really fun fighting style. He's been doing it for a long time. I mean, he's the winningest fighter in UFC history. He's got the most post-fight bonuses. He's got the most post-fight bonuses in UFC history. So to watch Donald Cerrone compete anytime is a real treat. And to do it in the main event in that fashion against the fighter who he was the underdog to, I think it's pretty awesome. So it's that alone is giving it, for me, from a 2 to a 3. Mayhem's giving it a 4 because of the front kick to the face from Cowboy. Jeremiah's giving it a 3. Dan Mears says 3.5 just because of the main event. Absolutely. Prelim is going 4 to 10 only because of the Cowboy Iaquinta main event and the Swanson versus Burgos, what should have been the co-main event. Yeah, absolutely. Really good stuff. Those 2 fights, not the whole card, obviously. 4 out of 10 is not really good stuff, but those 2 fights, really fucking good. But the entire night of fights was a long slog. I mean, there's not a lot that I want to talk about. There were even times where I was just kind of looking at it like, should I even try to make mental notes about these fights so I can talk about them in the post-fight show? Because the show is aimed at just being a half hour long, am I even going to need to mention a Vince Morales versus Ayman Zahabi? Probably not. The fight that happened before that was Nordine Taleb versus a debutant who's actually a lightweight coming up to welterweight to fight Taleb on short notice, and Kyle Propolek. And it looked like Nordine was out there having a fucking sparring match. He never looked like he had any killer instinct, never looked like he was going to go for the finish. He's just out there like winning a sparring match, which is great. And it was an impressive performance. It's just not fun to watch. Thanks, Nigel. But Macy Chiasson versus Sarah Moras was really good. And I just want to mention that it wasn't a really good fight, but it was a really good performance by Macy. And I just want to mention that I want Macy to fight, where's it at? Tanya Evinger next. Because she has shown that she can ward off the takedown attempts, or not ward them off, but like she got taken down by Sarah Moras, reverse position, got on top, and got a lot of good ground and pound in on Moras. I want to see her fight a higher level wrestler in this division in Tanya Evinger. And also, what we kind of keep doing is the young are eating the old. Tanya Evinger's been around for a long time, staple of the game. Obviously great grappling. I want her versus Macy Chiasson. Jeremiah White says that he wishes Chiasson would have fought Megan Anderson at 145 pounds. In the post-fight interview, Chiasson says that she wants to have fights at 45 and 35. I disagree, Macy. I think we just cut the 145-pound division. The 145-pound division was just to have Cyborg Justino there with a belt having like one-off fights against like low-level bantamweights anyway, and she got her ass whooped by Amanda Nunes. I don't even see why we need to have the 145-pound division. So I don't want Chiasson to fight at 145, even though she won Ultimate Fighter at that weight. I think that it's useless. Unless, like you say, she's fighting Megan Anderson, sure, let's do that. But I'm going to stick with Tanya Evinger for her. Thank you, June, for saying that. Dave Kula, what up, buddy? Worst show I've been to live by a landslide. Fights weren't great, made worse by a terrible crowd. Main event was great, but I was done. 3 out of 10. Man, I'm sorry that the fight cards weren't great for you. I've only been to 2 UFC events in my life, and both were awesome. I can't imagine sitting through like 6 hours of a shitty fight card like this. 3 finishes on the entire night. 6 hours and 3 finishes. Ugh. Boo. RC Kim. Cub may have been sucking for a long time. His 4 wins sandwiched between 6 losses weren't great. Mediocre or washed fighters. Korean Superboy is only quality win he has in the last 10 fights. Well, we're 45 minutes in. If you haven't already, please give the video a thumbs up. And you can subscribe to this podcast feed by going to Bloody Elbow Presents, wherever you get your podcast. Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play. Or you can search for Fly and Brian Show, and you'll only get the like the stuff that I'm involved in. The Bloody Elbow Presents has the Mookie and Krookie show, the 6-round post-fight show, Care Don't Care preview, If I Did It, all of that. So they're all great shows as well. But if you only want mine, you can subscribe to Flying Brian Show. So search for that wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, and all of that jazz. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the post-fight show for UFC 237, where Thug Rose Namajunas will put her strawweight title on the line against Jessica Bate-Estaca Andrade. We'll talk about who we think is going to win that fight over on Twitter. Follow me at Flying Brian J. Thank you so much, guys. Namaste. Thanks for being here, loser. I appreciate you, man. Later, guys. Cheers.